we are going to do our brush settings for our mixer brush. And by the way, the only thing I've done on this image so far is to remove blemishes. These are before and these are after. That's the only thing I've done so far. The next thing I'm going to do here is go in with my frequency separation action. Let me turn on my button mode. I'm going to turn on my frequency separation action, and then we're going to do that. And I'll be using 8 here for the radius of the blower, and this is our frequency separation. So if you don't know how to do your frequency separation or record an action with your frequency separation action that you'll be using for your retouching to make your workflow faster, I'll be linking a video down in the description that you're going to use. Once you watch that video, you'll be able to record your actions such as this, and then you're going to have that so you can use subsequently, so it's easy for you to follow along. Let's go in with our mixer brush. So once you're here, what you can do is just right click on the brush settings, your brush here, and then you pick mixer brush tool. Right, once that is set, you use a soft round brush such as this. Your hardness is 0, your brush size will be whatever you want right here, and then you can also come here and then load and use a clean brush, right? And then you keep this selected so it cleans the brush after every stroke. These settings are very important if your frequency separation action, if your frequency separation brush is going to work perfectly. And basically your mixer, if your mixer brush is going to work well, then these settings are very important, right? And we're going to come, I usually keep my wet at 20, and I keep my load at 30. I keep my mix at 30, and my flow is at 20, just so I can just build up gradually. Do you understand? Pretty much that's like the settings you need so far. So what do? I just come here, and then with your brush left and right bracket keys, you can increase or decrease your brush size, and all you can do is just paint over the subject. I would advise that you go in circular motions and not in straight motions like this, as you're going to make the image flat. Let's Ctrl Z to undo that. Right, so now you're going to just keep working on your skin. All right, just keep working on your skin. You can see that with these brush settings that we have right now, though I need to mention that I am using a Wacom tablet, right? So I have pressure sensitivity on, but even if you're using a mouse, the difference is pretty much not really noticeable. The difference is that you don't have pressure sensitivity on, right? So basically that's just it. So but I think you will do just fine with the same settings, pretty much. So basically that's how far we go, and then you just come here and you look at the before, and then you see after. With that same settings that I use, you can pretty do the same thing. All right, so let's just keep building that up, and pretty much that's what your mixer brush setting looks like, right? Just take your time, guys, to do this, as it's a pretty much, it's an interesting process, as I like to call it. So pretty much that's just how it goes, and we just keep working, just keep working, just keep working. So I'll forward this process just to keep the video a little bit shorter, so I don't keep you guys here for too long. All right, so pretty much that's the before, and this is after frequency separation, right? So what we are going to be doing from here would be to increase a little bit of saturation to this image, and how we are going to do that is add a levels adjustment layer right here, just like you can see, and we can pull in our blacks a little bit. Yeah, see, yeah, level is fine, and we can pull in our whites a little bit. You can see how we have successfully added a little bit of saturation to this image, right? And another thing we can do is come here and add a color adjustment layer, where we are going to introduce a little bit of blue to the image, just to cool it off a little bit, and add a little bit of cyan to the image, right? We are not doing too much with this, so it's all right. And we are going to clean up the eyes a little bit by adding a black and white adjustment layer right here, and then increase our white a little bit, and then we are going to hit Ctrl I to invert it. And let's zoom into this image a little bit, and with our brush tool right here, just a normal brush tool, flow at 30 and opacity at 100. So with white as the foreground color, we are going to paint into the image right here, just the eyes, to whiten it out a little bit, right? All right, so the teeth too, we could just dab in a little bit right there. So these are before and after. You can see before and after, right? So this is what we've actually painted in, and if we think that maybe we've actually painted way beyond what we want to paint in, right, we could just change our foreground color here to black, and then we are going to just hide that out as black hides and white reveals. Here, if this is black on the mask, is going to hide whatever feature is in there, and if you turn it to white, if this is white, is going to reveal whatever is on the mask. Does that make sense? All right, so let's take it down a little bit. So now what we can do at this point is to create a stamp visible layer, right, by hitting Ctrl Shift Alternate and E together. And you see Photoshop is taking a little while, and then voila, here's our stamp visible layer. So what we are going to be doing with this is taking out the stray hairs. So let's name that stray hair. So how are we going to do that? We are going to use the clone stamp tool right here, and let's zoom into our image a little bit, right? Let's zoom into the image a little bit. Okay, so how are we going to use our clone stamp tool here? Let's duplicate the stray hair layer, right, by hitting Ctrl J, right? So here is the clone, here is a stray hair copy layer that we are going to clip to the stray hair, right? So whatever we do is just here, and if we don't like what we've done, we can easily just delete and continue again, right? So right now we are going to hold Alt on our keyboard and then click on the part we want to sample from, and then increase our brush size, and then we're going to paint into, right? So we'll just hold Alt on our keyboard and click, and so you just keep going, right? So we're going to come here, hit Alt, reduce our brush size, and just keep clicking on it like that. So here's our before and here's our after. Here's our before and here's our after. And somehow we've done a pretty decent job with this, and at least our hair is not looking as bad as it used to be, right? I wouldn't say bad. Her hair doesn't have a lot of straight hair like when we first started. So these are before again and these are after. So what we can still do here again is to create another stamp visible layer by hitting Ctrl Shift and E, right? So now we are going to camera raw. So you come to filter and then you come to camera raw filter, right? And then you wait for Photoshop to do its thing, and here we are in camera raw filter. So what we can do here is, first off, I like to come here to this masking here and then click enter, and then I would select a background. Right, tell Photoshop to help select my background for me so I can treat it independently, right? And wait for it. Camera raw is analyzing, and voila, pretty decent selection right here. So what we can do is we can drop down the saturation. Can drop down the saturation a little bit and then add a little bit of blue to it. So we can add a little bit of blue to the background alone, remember, and then we take up the shadow a little bit. Can drop down the sharpness a little bit since it's just the background. We don't need the background to be so sharp. Right, so we can choose to increase our exposure or drop it down, right? So I'll just drop it -5, it's okay. And right now we'll go back to the basic settings right here. Here I'll then pull in my black and then pull in my white, because now we're working with the skin. Alright, in fact, let's undo that. And we'll go here again, and this time we are going to create new mask, right? For this time I want to select the subject, right? So now I'm selecting the subject as another layer, right? Alright, so for this part I'm going to pull in my blacks a little bit, and then I'm going to pull out my shadow. The blacks is too much, just do -1. Okay, I think -2 works perfect. And I'm going to come here and add a little bit of yellow to the image. Or should I just cool it? Alright, so I'll just drop the temperature slider a little bit and drop the saturation just a little bit as well, and pretty much then I'll just pop up the texture a little bit, say alright, so +4 is fine. I think it's too much, so I'm going to drop it to say okay, +2 is relatively fine. Alright, so basically you see how everything I'm adding right here now is on the skin. So I actually added 2 masks, one for the subject, one for the background, and one for the subject. Right, so let's go back to our basic here, where I'm going to increase the vibrance. Let's pump up the vibrance a little bit and then drop the saturation overall on the image. Right, so pretty much that's all I'll do here, and I'm going to hit OK, and let's go, voila, here we are. So this is before camera raw and this after camera raw. Alright, so I'm going to rename this camera raw. Right, so let's group this and name them here, and we're going to group this also, and name it color. Right, and this is our FS, frequency separation, and this here is our blemish remove. Right, so now let's turn off our camera raw, turn this all off, and now this was what our image looked like before we started, right? So this was what our image looked like before we started, and then we removed blemishes, and then we went in with our frequency separation, and then we went in with our color correction, and then we removed our stray hairs, and then we did our camera raw, and this is what the image actually looks like right now. And please guys, consider subscribing so we can make more of this video for you guys. Thank you so much for staying tuned, and please replicate and let's see where you go from here. Thank you very much, you're pretty amazing.